Welcome to IGTV. Today we're joined by James Armstrong, Managing Partner at Bluefield Partners and the Investment Advisor of Bluefield Solar Income. A really interesting space, given that Bluefield Solar Income is again, sea-based, close-ended investment company. It's focused on the acquisition and long-term management of diversified portfolio of low-carbon assets here in the UK. James, thank you so much for joining us. I guess you just had your earnings. Tell us three key things you pick out from your earnings that you think were key and excited you most.
Yes, good afternoon, Angeline. Nice to be here. Yeah, we've had a very positive earnings update this morning, and I think there are three themes which are developing or continuing to develop for the company, which have very positive implications for the company over the medium to long term. And those are the level of earnings that we recorded. So we've had record earnings for the half year, and we've also forecast out for the market that we expect to see very strong earnings going forwards out through to 2025 because of the success the company has had in capturing the very high power prices, which are very well documented in terms of the energy market in the past 12 months. We also think, against the backdrop of what the last 6 months has been quite challenging in terms of public policy, certainly around the time of the mini budget in September, we see some very positive noises coming out of the current government in respect of renewables and the stabilization of policy, which we think will be very beneficial for a company like Bluefield. And then lastly, we have our own proprietary pipeline and what of deals which we've been working on. It was a development program we started 4 or 5 years ago, and the last 6 months has shown some very good progress with that. And we're in a very strong position to be able to take advantage of the conditions that we see going forwards in the market. So those three things together give us reason, as we put in our interim results, a very positive outlook in the coming years.
It's interesting you talk about this policy backdrop because, of course, we've had this big drive to cut carbon, and we've had COP26, COP27 as well, and the huge push to drive this via the investment community through ESG and through investors becoming more conscious of the impact on the environment through their investments is a key focus the last few years. However, we've had the Ukraine crisis, the cost of living crisis. We still have this problem with energy. I want to just throw this to you because you're in a unique space. Some would say that the decarbonization push has been kicked into the long grass and been replaced by energy security instead. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say the opposite to that, but I also think that they are interlinked. I would look at it through the lens of what has been termed the energy trilemma. So the trilemma is governments having to deal with, 1, the cost of energy, 2, energy security, and then 3, net zero. So that rather existential challenge that we face. And what I believe the current UK government has recognised, and I believe governments around the world, you only have to look at the IRA stimulus package in the US, which is a $360 billion stimulus package, or what the packages that the EU are coming up with. I think what governments are recognizing increasingly is that renewables and storage are the solution, not the only solution, but they are a major part of the solution to cost of energy security and also net zero. So, for example, solar and wind are now the cheapest form of energy pretty much anywhere in the world, and including the UK. Solar and wind are the quickest to deploy. So in terms of your question, particularly around energy security, that is where you can solve one of those issues around security, particularly if you match it to batteries, which can create a proxy for baseload. And then in doing those two actions, then you are also dealing with the third very important point is around net zero and the impact it has on climate change. So I would say very strongly that it's never been more important to try and look at renewables as being a significant part of one's public policy. And I think the UK government, amongst others, is very much recognising that.
And interesting you mentioned wind as well, because I can see that the return on equity for Greencoat UK Wind is 27%, Bluefields is 26%, and Foresight Solar Fund, that is almost 19%. Um, what I'm interested in is the pipeline, and investors and traders will be keen to know what Bluefield Partners and the Bluefield Solar Income Fund, what is the outlook in terms of new renewables and storage solutions for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think if you look at the landscape, as just mentioned, of what we expect to be a supportive and progressive policy backdrop, then the key element for any of the funds in our sector is how do you deploy your capital effectively and efficiently. And the way that we our Bluefield focuses on this, and this is the DNA of our business, is that we look at the development construction funding model. We buy secondary assets, which are operational assets, but our absolute DNA in the way the business has been set up since the IPO, which we of the company almost 10 years ago, is to drive forward our growth through that primary pipeline. So the announcement this morning where we had informed the market that we've got a proprietary pipeline of close to 1.4 gigawatts. That's 1,400 megawatts of solar and battery developments. Some that have started being built, some that are in planning, and some that are slightly earlier stage. We've got that coming through, and that was a program we started 4 or 5 years ago in anticipation of the growth that we thought we'd see in the market. And so we are really excited about that program that we're undertaking at the moment, because it gives the opportunity for the company to be able to grow in a very strategic, measured, and efficient way over the coming years.
Thank you very much, James Armstrong, the managing partner at Bluefield Partners and the investment advisor of Bluefield Solar Income Fund. Really interesting space for investors who don't want to stock pick, but rather are looking to invest in assets, energy assets, renewables located in the United Kingdom.